actually streams on YouTube, because I'll hear a nasty echo. And while that's coming in, let's go ahead and get this started.
And Dan, please make sure I can also chat with the general audience, not just the panelists and hosts, if you can, please.
Yeah, you should be able to. Yep. Now that people are coming in, we should be able to. Why is that? Panelists can everyone. Yeah, it looks like everyone is available. So. Okay, so we are letting people file in, and I appreciate the tardiness of us getting started. But you know, when Michelle's not here, it makes it a little bit more challenging. So playing the part of Michelle today is Mark Corum, is joining us with. We're going to be starting off with the QB Power Hour. The right tool is the right tool for accountants, and the right tool is right with puns, right? So that and we're going to talk unpack that a little bit, and discover the genesis of RightTool. And if you don't know about RightTool, then you will today, because that's what we're talking about entirely today. So, of course, Michelle is not joining us today. She's somewhere on the other side of the planet in Papua New Guinea, hanging out with her daughter and new son-in-law as they're doing their thing in that neck of the woods. My name is Dan DeLong. I'm your co-host today. Worked at Intuit for nearly 18 years, and also doing the co-hosting duties at the Workshop Wednesdays over at schoolofbookkeeping.com. And Mark is joining us. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Mark Corum. I am the lead developer for RightTool. I was a bookkeeper for 4 years, as you can see here. But after a while, once I got to a certain level of busyness, I realized it was not a me thing. So I hopped into development thinking I was never going to touch QuickBooks again. And then later on got the itch to develop things for QuickBooks, and you know, everything spiraled up from there.
Right. I love that. Friend of Hector Garcia. I mean, that's good to put on your resume.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can pretty much skip everything else on my resume, you know. If I ever have to get a new job.
Oh, you know Hector. Oh gosh.
Like, yeah, I'll get you like a little spot on his YouTube channel if I need to.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for joining us today and helping us unpack. Of course, Hector would have loved to join us. He actually is lurking in the background and being able to help us with some questions. But, you know, as a CPA in the middle of tax season with a looming deadline in 4 days, or well, actually 1 week, right? It's actually the 18th is the tax deadline for personal returns. He's a little busy, so Mark is graciously stepping in to talk about and really unpack the features and functionality of RightTool. So a little bit about the QB Power Hours. Obviously, they're every other Tuesday at noon Eastern. Our upcoming webinars are on our website. You can check those out. And actually, next week or next webinar, we're actually going to be having Kat from Intuit joining us to talk about the plans for the Commerce tab in QBO. So hopefully you can join us then, and so we can see the new developments and upcoming developments coming in the Commerce section in QBO. Of course, whoops, I went too far. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. So our PDFs of the slides, the recordings, and the podcasts and other resources are at qbpowerhour.com/resources. And you can always check out the website, find the recently played webinar, and get those resources there. So if you want to get the handouts for today, because that's typically the first question that everybody asks, where is that PDF so I can print it out and make notes? You can get it on the resources. They are uploaded there. All right, so a little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions about something that Mark and I are going to be talking about today, please put them in the Q&A. Hector is there. He can add some color or commentary, as well as answer some of those questions as we unpack that. We have a lot to go through, so definitely this could be a QB Power 2 hour or QB Power 3 hour if we let it. But we're going to try to trim it to just 1 hour. But if you have comments, things to chat about, just put them in the chat, and we can certainly do that. But if you have something specific that you want to talk about with the RightTool tool, please put them in the Q&A, because then we can share them with Mark and Hector, and they can follow up with those things, because your registered email address will be attached to that, so we can follow up a lot easier than being buried in a chat. All right, so our agenda, we're going to talk with Mark and about how RightTool started, the philosophy behind the free and pro features, and then how do you get started with using RightTool, and then we'll do a demo, or I'm talking Mark will do a demo.
You're a part of this too now, Dan.
That's right. I mean, it's real easy to I was late on the RightTool train. Timing was just what it was. I wanted to adopt it early, but unfortunately the timing wasn't available. So, talking with Mark and Hector recently, like I'm a promoter, right? I love it, and that's what everybody's feedback is about. It's that it is such a great tool to use inside of QBO. All right, so let's launch our first poll question, which is actually a two-parter. What version of QuickBooks do you currently use, and have you used RightTool? Right. So if you go ahead and answer those as far as whether you use online, desktop, or both, and what flavor of RightTool are you using? So Mark, talk a little bit about the beginnings, or the genesis of RightTool, because your email originally was called Monkbee. Is that
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was when I was developing, I wanted to come back to the accounting space after a while. And one thing that always bothered me is the fact that I would sometimes, when I was working in QuickBooks Online during my bookkeeping days, is I would see forum posts from 4 years ago that would be like, hey, I'm having this problem, and is there any way to fix it? And they would have a workaround in the forum post, but they wouldn't actually have like a solution, at least in my mind, what I consider a solution to problems. And when I kind of came time for what am I going to actually build to help people with QuickBooks Online, I'm like, well, why don't I just build something that helps with those specific things that frustrated me? So that was kind of the idea behind Monkbee, and I also didn't like the fact that I didn't want to open up like 50 different tabs to look at all of my software that I use. So I wanted it to be literally in the same page as QuickBooks Online, like kind of like how Melio or Bill.com, I don't know if you still can, but used to be able to like use it inside of QuickBooks Online. I always liked that, and I wanted to be able to do that myself. So I created Monkbee, the Chrome extension, to do that. Yeah. And I was promoting that for quite a while. And then Hector actually saw it and reached out to me because he had his own vision of like stuff he wanted to do to make QuickBooks Online better, including kind of like bringing back some of the desktop functionality that he loved. And so what ended up happening was that we kind of merged our two ideas together. So he had his QuickBooks desktop stuff he really wanted to bring in, and I brought in my Monkbee stuff. And then eventually our visions just kind of merged until now we're both kind of on the same page with everything. We're constantly trying to figure out ways to make QuickBooks Online better.
So you two are kind of like the QuickBooks Wonder Twins, where you snap, fist bump each other, and now you're a form of RightTool, right?
Yes. And then maybe in the future we'll have other things that we end up taking the form of.
Exactly. So you have it kind of broken up into a free option and a pro. So let's talk a little bit about that, and we'll dive a little deeper into the what it actually looks like and everything when you get into the demonstration. But talk a little bit about the philosophy of the behind the two levels.
Yeah. So generally speaking, free is what we use to make it so that those little things about QuickBooks Online that frustrate you, the little places where it seems like, why is there not a link that takes you back to this place? Or why does this work this way? We kind of try to put that in the free version. So that's mostly like navigation and quality of life. And then there's a third element to that, which is for client use. So if you want to have your clients download RightTool, you can, and then you can have them turn on certain features that make sure that they don't screw up their own books while you're working on them. So things like, making it so that you have to have payees when you create rules. I'm trying to think of other things, but my brain is blanking.
Well, we'll be
it.
able to unpack that, but I'm thinking like in the free version, right? There's that audit trail dead end that you have, right? Like when you go into the audit trail and then actually look at a transaction in the audit trail, you're stuck, right? Like you're stuck in there. So this would help with that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the features that was one of the first things I built, and it was a recommendation by somebody, and it was a great recommendation. I would never have thought about it otherwise.
Yeah, and like coming back to like what you were doing originally, you were going around to all these community posts that were kind of unanswered, and that was a great kind of looking at that from almost like Intuit's perspective when we were talking before, right? Like these little things, right, that they make up a lot of frustrations, or in Hector's terminology, drives him bonkers, right? when you're using QuickBooks Online, but it's a usability thing, not necessarily a core function. When Intuit might have a larger vision of what they need to do, these little things that are just kind of scraps of things. This really just kind of together it makes for a really cool thing to be able to address all these things. But to put somebody's developmental resources on those, it almost didn't make sense for Intuit to do that, right?
Yeah, the things, and this is one of the hard things about, promoting RightTool, because it's like, it doesn't really just do one thing. It does a whole bunch of little things that add up to making your QuickBooks Online experience better. Right. And it's that stuff that, it doesn't move the needle from Intuit's point of view for like getting massive users or investment or anything like that. So it's not something they're super interested in.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how someone were to get started. Because looking at the poll question, it looks like about 14% of the folks that responded have never heard of RightTool, and 41% knew of its existence, but aren't using it currently. So a large chunk of the folks that are joining us today either haven't used it or don't know how. So how does it? You said it, it's an extension, right? It's not necessarily an app.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. It's a browser extension, and this is actually a good point for me to start sharing my screen, actually, because I can kind of just show off how you get it.
All right, I will stop sharing. And
super easy.
Turn it over to you.
Inconvenience. Let's see here. So I'm going to share the screen. The first thing you can do is you can just go to this URL, and I'm pretty sure I'm sharing now. So you go to righttool.app/free. And once you go there, it takes you to the Chrome store, to the RightTool page. And from here, if you're using Chrome, then you can just add to Chrome. But if you're using something else, it'll probably have something at the top like, hey, this is not, the Microsoft Edge store. So you just need to enable the ability to download from the Chrome store. So once you click that, then you can add to Chrome. So
would it be best to recommended to do this in Chrome or because I see on the slides you can't use Safari, and then there's limited functionality in Firefox.
yeah,
Edge is the only other major browser, I guess, that's left.
yeah, and the thing is, I've actually heard, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that RightTool actually works a little bit better in Microsoft Edge. So, kind of an interesting little fact there that I wouldn't have expected, but from what I've heard, very interesting. So you can use Chrome or you can use Edge. You can technically use Opera, but there's some weirdness there. But
Netscape.
yeah, Netscape is the one that we're really trying to focus on next because,
okay,
super important to get Netscape in there.
Exactly.
But yeah, getting started with RightTool is super easy. It's not a big sign up process. You literally just click add to Chrome. And then what will happen is once it downloads, it gives you this little warning about, privacy policy. We try not to track very much data. At the moment, we don't track very much data. So that our privacy is a big concern for us. So that's part of the reason we developed it the way we did. And so that pops up. And then once you do that, all you have to do is refresh or go to QuickBooks, and everything should just start working once QuickBooks loads in. And that's how easy it is to get started. Don't have to do literally anything else. So, yeah.
So as the name implies, it's on the right. So
it is on the right.
and I think first, as far as the navigation wise, you can collapse that if you want, right? So you can take real estate is always a concern for accountants using QuickBooks Online. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Real estate is a big part of trying to figure out how to make everything work for sure, because QuickBooks Online is not necessarily designed to be used with all the navigation bars put out, at least in my opinion. Sometimes it gets a little cluttered.
So one of the first things that you were talking about that is available in the free version, Hector made these the list of bookmarks available for him, for people to purchase, but actually you've implemented that as part of the free version, right?
Yeah. So he used to charge, I think, $20 a pop for like his bookmark bar, like his entire folder of bookmarks. All of that is now included in RightTool for free. So kind of get, nice little bonus there without having to pay for it.
Right. What a bargain.
Exactly. And I mean, there's tons of stuff in here, but you don't have to know all of them, as we will show you how you can kind of navigate around with it without having to be like super crazy detailed about knowing where everything is. So you want me to go ahead?
Said he used to sell it for $25, and he still sells it. So.
Yes, he still sells it. So if you prefer QuickBook or if you prefer Chrome Bookmarks for whatever reason, then you can use that. But yeah,
one of the things that you were showing me before is that these numbered ones on the right side is you can actually basically use your own keyboard shortcut, right?
Yeah. So when we first started working on RightTool, Hector was obsessed with keyboard shortcuts. He loves keyboard shortcuts. He likes to do everything as fast as humanly possible. So one of the things we actually ended up implementing in here is whenever you have these favorites, for favorites 1 through 10, you can actually have a custom shortcut where you just press Control-Alt and then whatever number, and it goes to that page. So if I wanted to go to the bank feed right now, I could press Control-Alt-1, and it opens a new tab.
Or Control-Option-1 if you're using
Control-Option if you're using Apple, yes. I'm sorry, Apple users. I constantly forget to mention you whenever I'm talking about that particular feature. Hector is an Apple user, by the way.
Yeah, it's important to just to point out that they're not left out.
Yeah.
Just because it's because they're using another another operating system. And one of the things I'm going to throw up the second poll question about, does change frustrate you? One of the things that this solves for is consistency, right?
Yeah.
So, QuickBooks, changes rapidly, and navigation wise, sometimes you'll notice that one client has banking and another client has transactions. They all go to the same place, but when you pop into that other client and you see a different terminology, this is a solution for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that's nice about this is even though the left side nav bar seems to be changing every day, like right now it seems like it's darker than it used to be for whatever reason. Ours is pretty much going to be relatively the same. If there's anything that's new, it won't dramatically change how the look of this is. It'll just be like a new feature that's available. So yeah, definitely something that kind of makes it so you have a little bit more control over what's changing inside of QuickBooks Online for you. Yeah.
So I see there's a search. So talk a little bit about the search, what you can do in the search there.
Yeah, so first off, I want to just kind of go over what, the top part does real quick, and then we can go into the search. So, this top bar right here just has all the little things that you kind of need to have just right here in one spot. So if you like the plus button from QuickBooks Online, it opens up that little plus new menu item. The gear icon goes to the settings for QuickBooks Online, this gear icon over here. And then this one actually opens up, and this one being the, wrench and screwdriver opens up the RightTool options, because there are a ton of them. But don't get too overwhelmed by that yet. Those are the three important ones. But as I said, Hector really loves his keyboard shortcuts. So if you ever want to go into RightTool and wonder, like, hey, what are the keyboard shortcuts? They are all listed in here. Now, there's a ton of them. So what I would suggest is not learning all of them, but just learning the ones that you actually use. And then, you can just use them whenever you have RightTool turned on. So that's just a quick thing I wanted to go over. And then there's the voice command thing, which we can do after we look at the search. So yeah, the search is, we mentioned earlier that RightTool has all of those links from Hector's bookmarks that he used to sell. Well, you could, if you wanted to, go to all shortcuts whenever you're thinking about going somewhere, and you could go to recent transactions, and you could go to, okay, I want to search for recent payroll checks. But if you want to, or what's easier to do, I should say, is you can say recent up here, you can search recent, and then all of the options with recent will just show up in this bar. And then if you have, something more specific, so you're like, I want to see recent payroll, then you can actually search for that, and you can get even more granular. So it's just really easy to find anything that you want inside QuickBooks Online. And the cool thing about it is that it makes it so that if you ever have something you want to do in QuickBooks, you can kind of, if you just know like generally what you're looking for, like let's say you want to see or reclassify tags, then if you just type in tags, then it makes it so you can see, oh, there's something right here that allows me to reclassify tags. So it's just something that's really cool, kind of makes
and then
sense.
if you wanted to, have that on your favorites, you could just mark the star, and then it'll always be there on your favorites, right?
Yeah, so if you go to reclass tags for whatever reason super frequently, you can click on this little star. It brings you to favorites, and now it's at the bottom of your favorites. And if you want it to be something you go to whenever you press Control-10, then you can just come up here, drag and drop, and every once in a while it hits the wrong one for whatever reason, but it just wants to go there for whatever reason. But yeah, you can drag and drop.
You find with your keyboard shortcuts, do you have like if you wanted to do Control-Alt-10, do you have to hit the 10 at the same time, or
Control-Alt-10 is just Control-Alt-0. So it's not actually 10, it's just 0.
0. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's like it would be confusing to put 0 at the end there, although I have considered it. So yeah, that's kind of what happens there. Yeah. And the cool thing about the search bar is the fact that you can also use it as an actual search inside of QuickBooks Online. So, if I want to search for invoices in QuickBooks Online that have a value of 400, or really just any transaction with a value of 400, you click search and it'll search for that inside of the search area. I don't have anything with that, but there's also kind of a more advanced thing you can do where you can say, I want it to be greater than 100 and less than 400. And then search. And I'm going to close these up. And what that'll do is it'll search for every transaction in QuickBooks Online with those in between those amounts. So
yes. So all those people who are frustrated with the Intuit search and the advanced search and the where can I find these things? You can just leave that behind.
Exactly.
And kind of live in the tool that actually will do your thing. Now, talk a little bit about. I want to back up a little bit, and when you first were joining forces with Hector, and he found MonkBee. He was like, okay, here's what I would like you to do, and he was expecting you to come back in like a month. And what actually did happen?
Yeah, so we talked about it. He wasn't entirely sure if we were going to work together yet, but he's like, here's an idea. If we could do like an MVP of it, that would be really cool. And I think he was expecting it anyways to be done in a couple of months, or a month at least. But then I reached out to him 3 days later, and it's during the weekdays too. So it was I was up pretty late those particular nights. I'm not going to lie to you. And I came back to him. I'm like, here's you go. Here's what this is. And he was like, this is awesome. And kind of just started that relationship where we're like, okay, maybe we can actually get something cool done here.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've observed from just kind of like the outsider's perspective is how quickly you've been able to to implement a lot of the valuable feedback that people have, and I think that's part of why people are loving it, is because you don't have to wait for QA testing or what have you. I mean, you are so fast at implementing the feedback and the changes that it's a welcome it's a welcome change to the slow juggernaut of Intuit responding to some of this feedback.
Yeah, and that's, again, it's basically part of the core ethos for why I wanted to build something like this in the first place, is to make it so we could do something fast. I get the fact that QuickBooks can't do anything that fast, but it's something where I personally was getting frustrated with it. So this was a fix for that. And that actually leads me into a great point, which is the fact that when you develop things fast, it can also mean that you are going to be adding things in that people don't necessarily like sometimes, which is why we have the settings the way that we have it set up. So just to be clear again, you can click on this middle settings button right here, and it'll take you to the RightTool options. Now, it seems overwhelming at first because there's so many options. And it feels like you have to know what everything does. But for the most part, we actually turn everything on by default that we think won't be like super inconvenient or in the way. And then everything else is more of a like, hey, as you're exploring and you want to learn more, you can add it in, and it's kind of like an extra cherry on top. So, I mean, admittedly, it's a sundae with way too many cherries, but it's not something where you can actually take it down to pretty bare bones. And that's kind of a big thing.
You can remove your cherries.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big part of it for us, is making sure that everything is pretty much configurable to how you want it to be. One example of that I'd like to show is, and I'm going to actually close this page and this one. is the fact that when you first download RightTool, it automatically closes the left side nav bar and opens the right side. Something you might not have noticed when you first see it. But, if you're somebody who still wants to use that left side nav bar, then what you can actually do here is that inside of QuickBooks user experience, you can turn off the auto close left nav. And once you do that, if I refresh the page, you'll see that the left nav bar actually stays out there. And then you probably would want to close the right side toolbar because real estate, again, is pretty important. And having two sidebars tends to make the real estate real small.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why
it's like trying to look out a porthole of,
exactly.
of a cruise ship,
So that was a big thing for us. And that's why we kind of had to debate for a while whether we wanted to auto close the left nav bar or not. Because it's like, do we want to kind of disrupt everything? But honestly, I think that using it with both nav bars is just tough. And once you use RightTool enough, you'll realize that it's like so much better for getting around that we think you'll love it quite a bit. And then like the second part of that is to be sure that, some people like to open everything in new tabs. I personally don't like to open everything in new tabs. But by default, like if you go to bank feed right here and I click on that, it opens in a new tab. Now, some people love that because you don't lose your spot. But for me, I actually like to turn this off. And then once I come into here and let's refresh the page, because you have to refresh the page because of how extensions work in order for everything to work correctly. But once I refresh the page and everything comes back, now if I click on, let's say, bank register, it just opens in the same page like QuickBooks normally does rather than, opening everything as a new tab. So those are two things that are like really important to know because those are kind of the foundational things that will determine whether or not you actually like RightTool, at least in my opinion, because it can be difficult if you don't.
Yeah, we want to be cognizant of time, and people are asking you to show things again. We don't want to take that time, to do that. This will be, it is live streamed on YouTube. You can always go back and rewatch the video on that particular point to get those features in there. And we could actually spend probably 2 or 3 hours going through and combing through everything here. So we really want to hit the highlights of what it is. Anything else that you want to talk about on the free version that we want to we want people to understand?
Yeah, a big important thing is this add custom button inside of the favorites page. So this is something that allows you to, right now you could, if you use the search bar, find anything that Hector has put up. But if you wanted to make your own, like, let's say month or show this report by months for, let's say, last quarter and then run report. This actually might be one of the reports that Hector actually includes, but let's say it isn't. Then you can come in here and click add custom and you can rename this to whatever you want. So you can say by month in quarter. And you can save that. And now you have at the bottom here a custom favorite that you can use however you like. And this actually works across any clients that you go to. So now from now on, you can use this same report for, here's the sample company. But if you had like XYZ company, you could use the same report there, so on and so forth. So something that's just really cool to be able to use. And you'll be able to tell if it's a custom one because it'll have this little golden star next to it. So that's something that's
it's a
super
golden favorite versus a silver favorite.
Yeah,
going precious metals on your favorites.
Hectors are just okay, your own favorites, they're the gold ones, right?
That's right.
I have to poke fun of Hector at least a little bit every once in a while, just because can't let him get too big of a head. So and then another thing that's a free feature that I personally love, I don't know if everybody cares about it, but I personally love it, is that whenever you go to like a new page and you edit a chart of accounts account. So let's say I edit this travel account and I press, let's just put a space and save. It takes me to the top of the first page, which is super frustrating because a lot of the
Yes,
time I
yes.
actually want to continue working in the same thing that on the
Where
next
I was
thing.
at. Yeah.
So you press jump to last and it will actually take you to the page you want to go to, and it will highlight the last thing that you worked on so that you can, you know, continue doing your work without having to start from zero.
That in and of itself is worth the price. Wait, this is the free version. So
exactly. So yeah, that's my viewpoint on it, is that that's just such a cool thing and it works so smooth. I love it. It makes me feel good inside. So that's the one that's kind of my favorite. Oh my God, we have so many good free features though. Like it would be hard to go through all of them in a reasonable time frame. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. And then there's this one right here that people at the beginning talked about, which is what we call audit log, new tab. So, you know, if I go into an invoice and let's look at an older invoice real quick and press more, we go to audit history, you'll notice that it opens in a new tab instead of opening in the same tab, which means that now you don't have to, you know, do that back to transaction and you press the X button and it takes you back to the audit log, and then it keeps going back and forth. It's super frustrating.
All right, so, it's like Clark Griswold on the turnaround in London.
I'm not gonna lie to you, didn't get that reference, but I appreciate it. You went for it, and I like
it. That's right. All right, I'm sure at least 50% of the people watching knew what I was talking about.
That has to be the next poll now. So
yeah, Nancy gets the joke. Yes, thank you.
And yeah,
Big Ben Parliament.
Fair enough. And so yeah, that is kind of how you can. There's again so many things for free that I would love to show, but that's kind of like some of the bigger stuff since we have only so much time to go through.
Yeah.
Actually, one other thing.
One thing on the slide about the show journal normal balance.
Let me make sure that's turned on, and then we can do that. Okay, so it is turned on. So yeah, let's go into here and journal entry. And it looks like somebody raised their hand, so I don't know if they have a question, but let's see here. So let's say you go into here and you put in checking and you have some kind of equity account. I don't know. Let's hope equity is something that's short. Revenue. That's not really what I was hoping for either. Let's see here. And then refresh the page and then hope that QuickBooks did not change something in the journal pages, because every once in a while they like to change things on me. Let me actually change over real
changing
quick.
Tires on a moving vehicle, which is
yes,
is always
exactly.
A challenge.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my pro version real quick. And by the way, if you ever want to turn off RightTool for like you're doing a client meeting or something like that, what you can do is you can click on this little jigsaw puzzle, go to manage extensions, and then you can actually toggle on and off like the whole RightTool by just pressing this little button right here. So just something that's good for you if you're actually going around and helping people out with or doing like videos or something for people. Okay, there it is. Something else it must be something with the free version that I'll have to fix, which is fine. So yeah, you come over here and you do checking and let's say equipment rental, and again revenue. You can always hope. And what will happen is if you press this button up top here with the arrows, it will actually show you like what direction the account normal balance is in. So if you're trying to correct a checking account, you're trying to like add to it, put it in the debit, or if you're trying to remove from it, you put it in the credit. Something that's helpful for people who are new.
You don't have to remember Alice or all of the other mnemonic devices to which one goes up or down for debits and credits.
Yeah, and the extra side benefit of that as well is the fact that if you have like something that's named weird, like it's a shareholder equity account, but like it's named weird, then this will actually tell you which way it goes, even if you don't 100% know, like, what kind of account is this? So something that just helps out with that.
That's kind of encapsulated all the free stuff that you get. So just by opting into the the Chrome extension, you can take advantage of that. So let's talk a little bit about the Pro, which is more of, for accountants and bookkeepers and people with multiple clients. What do you unlock by doing the Pro version?
Let's see, what's the best place to start with what you unlock? So,
well, I guess the first place is how do you unlock the
that is a good point. So if you're using the free extension, then what you can see is,
first off, you see the ads, right? So if you want,
you do see the ads in the free version.
If you're bothered by advertisements, this will get one. That's the first feature that will go away, is that you won't see ads.
Yeah. And we try to make the ads something that's useful to people and that doesn't compete with accountants and bookkeepers. That's like our kind of two criteria for putting it in
behind that.
Yeah. Because, don't want to do the QuickBooks things of advertising against yourself. So, you can click on remove ads here at the bottom and it'll take you to the register page, which I'm already logged in. So it's kind of doing a weird thing here. But alternatively, you can also just go to RightToolPro.com. And from there, you'll be able to log in and register. So let me log out of this. And yeah, you can sign up here at the top. Probably need to change that to be a little bit wider. But yeah, that's how you can get to Pro. And once you are there, there's a couple of things that I find to be super helpful, or that people have told me is super helpful. The first of which I want to show, and did I turn on? I did not turn it on. Fair enough. And I'm going to actually close this page. The first thing I want to show that I personally like is inside of the bank register. And inside here, you'll notice that once you have Pro, there's this little button that says batch underneath of the date part of the register. So what you can do is you can come in here, press that batch button, select the first checkbox for whatever you want to delete or unreconcile. And then you can go down to whatever checkbox you want to go down to, hold shift and click on the checkbox, and you can select a whole bunch of items all at one time. And then you can just delete. And this is good for if you have somebody who your client went through and put in stuff they weren't supposed to do, or there's double duplicate or duplicated things coming in from software that synced up. So you just do this and it will go through, and one by one, it'll delete everything. It's a good time to go and get coffee or something like that, because usually by the time you get back, it's done. But it does take just a second.
You mentioned unreconciled. You could unreconcile transactions this way, or is it only deleting?
Here, you see that R, which I don't need to. Yeah, let's try that. So you can come in here, checkbox it. Obviously, you'd want to checkbox more than one, but right. Over here you can unreconcile it, so it'll take it from that R back into a blank right there. So not something you would use all the time, but if somebody is a client or something that went through and pressed the button and went in here and did the R's manually so that everything would balance out, as sometimes they are ought to do.
Yeah, you're killing jobs here, because Crystal in the chat said, "My son will be sad. I usually pay him to delete transactions for me." Well, I mean, child labor is no longer an issue.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to get too much into politics on that one. Although it is good tax savings to have your kid work for you a little bit.
That's true. I'm sure there's plenty of other things that that children can do now.
Yeah. There will always be something annoying for somebody to do when it comes to accounting. There's always something that you can kind of get somebody to do for you.
He's 25, she says, so it's not actually a minor here.
Well, that just takes all the fun out of it.
Yes.
But yeah, that's one of the big things. Another thing that when people see it, they're usually pretty happy about it, is in here with reclassify transactions. And this is, and I'm just going to close that out for right now. Inside of Accountant Pro, this is shift clicked in all lists. So like most everything in QuickBooks Online at this point, we've kind of added this feature to. And let's hope there's more than one. That's fine. So what happens is normally if you have this feature turned off, and you know what, let's just do it real quick just to show you. Design income, and I click on one and then I shift and then I hold shift and click on the next thing. All it does is highlight everything up until that point, which is, you know, kind of a little bit weird. So what this enables is now that I have that turned on and I refresh the page, I can actually come into here. And now if I click on this and I hold shift and click on the next thing, it clicks on everything, which makes it so, and it's not super helpful when you only have 3 things in here, but if you have like hundreds of things inside of the reclassify tab, it makes it so you can easily go through and select a whole bunch at one time without having to just press this button and then press it again.
Yeah,
and
there's some fans about the click shift, but question, does that work in reconciliation?
Yes, it does, although it's a little bit weird there. And here's what I mean by that. And let's go in here, just because that's a good question. Ending balance, just say 0.
And then there's a follow-up question about control click. Does that does this help with controlling and click, like randomly multiply selecting something?
If you want to control click for most of these things, you know, basically you can already get that functionality by, like, let's say you click on this one and then you click on this one and then you click on this one, and then you can use shift click if you want to and do that. So you can kind of, unless there's something else that you guys are asking for there, then, you know, feel free to reach out to Hector or put it in the Q&A and we'll see if we can get to it. But you might have seen there what happened when we did shift click there, which is the fact that because QuickBooks has kind of a weird UI, it has to kind of do one by one clicking for this particular page. So it kind of has a little bit of a jankiness to it. But it does work for that.
It was way faster than you manually clicking all of those checkboxes.
Exactly. And that's generally the goal. Is we try to get as best as we can, but sometimes you have to make, because the extensions work only with what's visible to you, which is why this is actually kind of, it's a very secure app to use because of the fact that we specifically go out of our way not to use the API, and we go out of our way not to take information from specific pages. So there's very little chance of anything happening to your file without you knowing explicitly about what's happening. So it's very secure in that way. Now, Chrome extensions in general have some challenges with security, but that's more of a, if somebody's a bad actor. Hopefully you trust me and Hector enough to be convinced that we're not bad actors. But yeah, in that way, this Chrome extension is very secure in that way.
Now this plus expense here, this is actually part of RightTool, right? Because that's
yes.
Anything that you see in this like maroon color is kind of like an overlay of RightTool on top of QuickBooks Online, right?
Yeah, we specifically go out of our way to color everything that's RightTool specific with this maroon
blood
color.
red,
as Hector likes to say, blood red. Yeah, he likes to go with the blood red color. Yeah, so everything that you see here.
I was thinking it was the maroon from the original Intuit logo when it was made for a dot matrix printer. But okay, blood red, we'll go with that.
Yeah. Well, we can't say it's from Intuit because then they could sue us for it, you know. But
right.
I'm just kidding. Well, I mean, maybe
like
I don't know.
Homage.
I'm not a lawyer.
It was an homage to when Intuit really listened to its accountant partners. Oh, yeah. Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
But if you do hate that color because you're like, man, I really hate these, we do like to put it in there because it makes it very, very clear what's RightTool and what's not. But if you really hate the red color, you can come into accessibility and turn it to black and white color scheme. And once you do that, everything will look kind of like this instead. So the CSV button over here is in black and white. This expense thing is in black and white. You know, just something there that it's kind of an option for you if you really hate the red or the blood red, as we like to call it. But yeah, the expense.
So what? Yeah, talk about that. Yes, what that button does.
Yeah, so what it does is, you can always come over here from this screen and you can press the plus button and create like an expense or an invoice or whatever you need to do in order to make it so the reconciling comes out correctly. Like if you're just like, I need to create a new transaction in here. But when you do that, it does two things. One, it opens it in the same tab, so you have to get your way back to the reconcile screen, which is annoying in its own self. And then the second thing is the fact that, well, it doesn't autofill any information for you. So what you could do here is, let's say I wanted to make a sales receipt that needs to match up with this reconcile, and I have everything open in the same tab. So what it'll do is it will actually deposit like this deposit to. You don't really see it when you're, because it is literally just happening in the background. This deposit to is now checking, which is exactly the area that we were in before. So it actually pre-fills that with the correct account. So you don't have to worry about, did I remember this when you're working inside of the reconcile page. So that's just like a cool thing that allows you to get your, and that's a big, so my part of it is I want to focus on things that are frustrating and QuickBooks could fix, but hasn't. And Hector's thing is I want to save like every second I possibly can while working inside of QuickBooks Online. So that's kind of where our two design philosophies are. He's just like, if I can save one singular second and I can do that like 50 times in a day, then, and you do that over the course of a month, then it's going to be worth it to you. It's kind of his viewpoint on it.
Got it. There's another feature that you have here on the slides. Chart of account filter by type is a pro feature. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, this is a big one. This is one people really like, and it's why I included it. It's interesting. So when you're inside,
and then Hector's
here,
talking about, and then Hector wants you to show the reconcile indicator crowd pleaser.
Yeah, that is also
we got
a crowd
those
pleaser.
Two.
Yeah, so for this one, you can, whenever you go inside the chart of accounts, you can filter by name, and you can like do the arrows to get by type, and you have some kind of filtering, but you can't actually just see, hey, what's everything that's in, let's say, oh god, let's hope that there's one inside of here. So fixed assets, right? So sample company, you kind of have to, you're taking your risks when you use sample companies sometimes. So now with this turned on, I can see only the fixed assets. So it makes it so it's a lot cleaner, and you can just go to like, okay, I want to see income. Okay, here's all the income accounts. And it's not split up between every single area inside of the chart of accounts, because sometimes you have like account numbers or you have sub accounts. And because of that, it kind of muddies the water sometimes. So this makes it very clear what you have available.
Combining that with the jump to location, like if you're working on the other income, which is typically at the bottom of your of your chart of accounts, and then you're working on it and it jumps back to the top. Here you can just filter for the other income to see them all in one place, so that one, you don't have to worry about the jump to, but if you are, you can just jump back to your location if you're editing those low hanging chart of accounts that are showing there.
And then you can do the shift click in here too.
So let's go to the reconcile indicator, and then we'll just kind of talk about this promotion that you have for the Power Hour users.
Yeah, let's do it. So let's say you go and you don't know for a fact that this particular transaction is reconciled. Let's say you go into a reconciled transaction, and did I turn on? Yeah, I need to refresh the page. But yeah, let's say you go into a transaction inside of QuickBooks Online. This is something that Desktop had, but they just never decided to put into QuickBooks Online. If you ever go into a transaction, now there will be a thing at the top, and this is for pro users. This is a tag at the top that tells you, hey, this transaction has been reconciled. So you don't have to like change it or try to delete it to figure out if it's been reconciled, or you don't have to look inside the register. It's just already there, and it works for any transaction. So it'll just show it. You don't have to go to it from the register. And so that's very cool. And one thing that's also nice about it is if you click on the reconcile button, it will take you to a report that will, and this isn't like super helpful for like an expense, but if you have a transfer or credit card payment, then you can see based on if there's an R here, is it reconciled in both accounts when you're doing
on
transfers?
both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of is a quick
big
way to
one.
see that.
Got it. Because it could be reconciled on one side, but not the other side, which that's typically where you have those challenges where you have both accounts connected and one gets reconciled and one doesn't. And then the other side has the other side done and the other and without the other one. So yeah, it's
exactly. So that's what this report is for.
That.
And then you can just click back to transaction. It brings you back to this page because otherwise it does that same audit loop thing that audit history does.
If it's cleared and not reconciled, would it say cleared or does it not show at all?
At the moment, it only shows reconciled. If people come at me and ask, hey, can you do the same thing for cleared? Then, maybe we'll do something with that. But for the moment, it's just reconciled.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess if it was cleared, though, it would probably show up here as matched in the bank feed anyways. So.
That's true.
Yeah. And so.
All right. So the pro features are designed to help people with multiple clients being able to save more time working in multiple clients. If people see the value of that and they want to opt in for the pro, what does it cost? What does it normally cost to do that?
Yeah. So normally what RightTool costs is $50 a month. But it is for all clients. So you don't pay a per company fee. You just pay for one subscription and it works across all clients. So, kind of expensive if you only have one client, but pretty cheap if you have 20.
True. And what about team members? If you have multiple team members?
Yeah, and what happens then if you have additional team members, you can just add them in. And let's see if I can do that real quick. Sign in, and yeah, you just have a pro team right here. You can just add a team member from right here, and each additional team member is $15 a month. So the first one, 50, and then any additional team members. Sorry, when I say the first one, I mean for you specifically. It is 50, and then when you add any team members, it's $15 from then on out. So something of a discount for bulk people.
And then we have a promotion for the QuickBooks Power QB Power Hour viewers. If you use the promotional code QBPH, which is in the slides, or we'll have that. It's on our website. Did
you want to show your slides now at this point, or is there anything else you wanted to ask about? Or people asked about?
I think that's it. I did want to throw out the last poll because we are coming up on the top of the hour. What do you think about RightTool? So go ahead and answer that. But I think we're going to need to. Yep, that's the end of my slides as I'm looking at them. So I think we timed it pretty well, Mark. That's pretty good because we could certainly get into the weeds about this for sure, because there's all sorts of because like you said, it's all these little things that it's doing that make up something grandiose or bigger than itself. Some of the parts.
Right? Mind if I jump in for a second?
Absolutely. Voice.
All right. So a couple things. I want to clarify a couple things. So number one, there's no cost per client. The number of QuickBooks Online files that you support doesn't matter. So if you have one client or 100 clients, it doesn't matter. This is tied for the user. This is the user. The first user, right, whether it's you or the owner of the firm, whoever puts the credit card in, is the one that pays the $50. And then any additional users you add under the same account being paid under the same credit card would be $15 a month, 15. And that extra user could be a member of your team, like somebody that works in the same firm as you, or it could even be a client. So if you want to pay on behalf of your client for a pro version, you certainly may do that. Our vision is that the pro users, the accountants, the ProAdvisors are the ones that get the pro account, and the end users, the small business owners, get the free account, because we don't have enough time to cover that, but there's a couple of features that are sort of user specific, that not so much accountant specific, such as the little cheat sheet for the journal entry, restrict bank transfers. Like with the free user, you can actually set it up so the end users who are basically not accountants are not allowed to do transfers in bank feeds. You can also restrict users from creating rules that don't have payees, so rules with missing payees. So there's a whole bunch of things that we visualize as small business owners to have features that either add to the experience or remove from the experience, so the accountant can restrict a little bit of what the user is doing, or help or aid the user in doing certain things, such as adding the original dollar amount to the memo if the user avoids the transaction. That's also in the free version. So the idea is that everybody in the world that's a QBO user uses the free version, even accountants. And then once you go through all the free features, and then go into the settings, and if Mark, if you don't mind, going to the settings, and click on like the little eye next to each of the settings.
This is an important thing that I should always
in the
bring
settings,
up.
every feature.
I think we lost him. Oh, he muted.
No, Mark, I said go ahead and explain that part. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, every feature that we have, this is an important thing that I should cover, but I forget sometimes, has an eye icon next to it that has like a little blurb of text about what it does, and then a video that shows as well what it does. So you can have something that's kind of a reference for like, what does this do? How does this help me? Something that's just available to you in case you're just like, I might want to turn this on, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, if only you knew someone that was really good at making tutorial videos for QuickBooks.
Yeah, it's been tough, man. Don't have anybody good on the team for it.
Fantastic. Well, Mark and Hector, thank you so much for joining us here today. I know we crammed a lot of information in our power hour here. And at such short notice, because I reached out to Hector on Thursday, and we threw this all together within a few days. So again, another testament to the rapid iteration of Mark and collaboration of Mark and Hector. Pretty awesome stuff, and it really just points to when rather than banging your head against the slow moving change, taking the reins and making that change yourself is just one of those things that just really points out the collaboration between you and Hector. And I really appreciate you both for coming in today and showing our audience what this can do.
Yeah. And I had a lot of fun, I always like talking to you, Dan, even though we've only done it twice, but I've liked both times. So, I mean.
All right. So
we have a trend.
We're batting 1,000. There we go. Yeah. Now it's a trajectory.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, we'll see you next time on the QB Power Hour. We'll be talking about the what's in store for the Commerce tab inside of QuickBooks Online. So that may play havoc with the RightTool, but we'll see as we go along. All right, we'll see you next time on the